But it is not the spiritual that is first, but the natural, and then the spiritual. Have you ever wondered what Paul meant when he said this? Well, if we stay in context with what he's discussing, back up a few verses, we find that he's speaking of the natural body as opposed to the spiritual body, immediately following with first man Adam and the last Adam. If we back up a little more, we find that the main subject Paul is positing is the resurrection of the dead. Why is this important? Because earlier in the chapter, Paul states, if there is no resurrection of the dead, not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain and our faith is in vain. In other words, if there is no resurrection, then Christianity is just another man-made religion birthed from our own minds. In the middle of all of this, Paul states that the natural is first and then the spiritual. What did Paul mean? I believe the following tells us. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. God's eternal power and divine nature are invisible. Yet here, Paul is clear that we are more than able to perceive both. How? By considering the things that have been made. Is this not the natural things? It is, and written into the things God created is the greatest testimony of His truth. One of the best examples is resurrection. Strong's defines resurrection as standing up again. That is literal, the resurrection from death. Standing up again from death. Now that sounds quite fantastical, doesn't it? It does, until we understand what the principle of resurrection truly is. This brings us to the following. Someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body do they come? Here we find two questions almost anyone might certainly ask, and the answer to both follows. You foolish person, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies, and what you sow is not the body that is to be, but a bare kernel, perhaps of wheat or of some other grain. But God gives it a body as He has chosen, and to each kind of seed its own body. In answer to how the dead are raised, Paul states, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies. What you sow? Yes. And Paul answers the next question by saying, in what you sow is not the body that is to be. So in other words, Paul describes resurrection as the process of sowing and reaping. We find further confirmation in the following. So is it with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. Here we are. Regarding the resurrection of the dead, what is sown is perishable, while what is raised or reaped is imperishable. So in keeping with the body that is sown and the body that is reaped, there is a distinct difference. The first is a natural body, the second a spiritual body. Does the natural body refer to this human form? Indirectly, yes, but I believe it refers more to the soul based on the following. Then Jesus said to His disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life and or soul will lose it. But whoever loses his life and or soul for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? As you see in the first two instances where soul is used, it is rendered life, but it's soul just like the last two instances. Might this be the natural body? I believe it is, for our soulish life is based primarily on the flesh, is it not? So, indirectly, the natural body is the flesh, but directly, it's the soul. How does Paul put it? The resurrection of the dead is sown a natural body, but raised a spiritual body. This explains why Ecclesiastes states that the spirit will return to God who gave it. Even more confirmation is found when we continue in 1 Corinthians 15, because Paul immediately follows with, "And so it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening or life-giving spirit." You see, my friend, there is much more to the story of Adam and Eve than what first meets the eye. Now, Paul said that what is sown does not come to life unless it dies. In agreement, Jesus said that when we desire to save our soul, we'll lose it. Or if we lose our soul for his sake, we'll find it. Either way, the soul is lost while the spirit remains. We start as a living soul, pass through death, and then we're raised in life. At its simplest level, we have a threefold pattern of living, death, then life. This is the process of sowing and reaping, or resurrection. Is it not true that a seed is alive before it's planted, dies in the earth once it is, then comes back or is raised in a different form or body than that which went into the ground? Isn't it also true that the life of the seed cannot be realized until it falls into the earth to die? First, the natural body, followed by the spiritual body. I believe the story of Adam and Eve is a reflection of this very thing. Please consider the following. But the natural man does not receive the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, nor can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Here, Paul speaks of the natural man, consisting of body and soul, relating to everyone who enters this earthly plane. Would this not be our natural body? This natural man is unable to receive the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, nor can he know them, because they're spiritually discerned. Is it not true that when we are born into this world, we are essentially a blank slate, devoid of knowledge, especially that of good and evil? This would, of course, mean that we're innocent until such time that we do begin to understand the nature of good and evil. So, we start as living souls and eventually eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge, setting the process of dying in motion. This then leads to the need of being raised from death to life. So when Christ came, this was accomplished. We read, "Since by man came death," that is the first man Adam, "by man also came the resurrection of the dead," the last Adam. For as in Adam, that is the first man Adam, all die, even so in Christ, the last Adam, shall all be made alive. Now, a very important point. Paul's dissertation regards the resurrection of the dead. Dead, meaning all. This is everyone, past, present, and future. And the same all who dies in the first man, Adam, is the same all raised to life in the last Adam, Christ. Sowing and reaping, or resurrection, is not exclusive to anyone, but applies to everyone, regardless of culture or belief. Amazing, isn't it? So what is my purpose in sharing this? The main reason is to show how the Old Testament stories and their natural presentations contain spiritual understanding throughout, and even further understanding can be gleaned from God's creation. That's it for this study, but be sure to join me for part 2. Be sure to like, comment, or subscribe, and thank you for being a part of Grain of Wheat Publishing.